Two of the most decorated heavyweights in mixed martial arts history will go head-to-head on May 8th in Rotterdam. And Dan, I'm really surprised that these two haven't fought before, because they have been there and done it all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, they've fought everywhere. They've fought for pretty much every promotion, and their paths have just never crossed. It's kind of strange, really, but now's the time to make this fight. It's been a long time in the making, and obviously the teammate thing's a bit strange, but we need to know which one of these is #1 contender. We need to know which one's going to take that next step up.
Okay, well, let's dive a little bit deeper in Fight Focus. Andrei Arlovski is a very mobile fighter.
Yep.
How does Alistair Overeem combat that?
Well, he's got a few options. Obviously, he's a very well-rounded kickboxer. He's got a lot of experience in the K1 ring. So he's got a lot of options. He's got many different techniques that he can use to slow Arlovski down, to pick him off from a distance. And this is one thing that I think is going to be really useful, is the chop low kick. You're going to see in the replay how he's focusing right below the knee of Roy Nelson. You'll see in this fight, there's actually a lot of bruising around the calf muscle at the end of this fight from the impact of those kicks. A lot of strikers would go higher in the leg to deaden that thigh, but this is going to be useful if Arlovski's relying on that forward momentum, that speed and pressure moving forward, if you can start to buckle that front leg. The next thing that Overeem has to use against Arlovski, if he used using that rush forward, are these knees. The two knees, obviously the skip knee that's going straight up under the chin, it's got that upward momentum, and then the following knee, which is much more of a thrust knee. You'll see it actually going through the midsection of Roy Nelson, aiming for the solar plexus and the chest.
And he covers a lot of distance with both these techniques.
He's a big guy. And he also has a lot of good body kicks as well. We saw them in the Roy Nelson fight, perfectly targeted with the left leg on the side of the ribs of Roy Nelson. We also saw it in the Brock Lesnar fight, which we're going to see in a second. But this shows me a strategic approach to an opponent that we know can take a good punch. Another thing that he's adapted from Thai boxing as well is the wrist control. Obviously in Thai boxing with the big gloves, you can't control a wrist. So most people will focus on the Thai clinch, but Overeem has actually started utilising the wrist control to move hands out of the way so he can land those knees to the midsection. It's a very cerebral approach. He's a very clever striker. Again, when we're talking about attacks to the body, though, this is a great example of someone that is a physically very strong athlete, a very difficult person to deal with, a good wrestler, can cover distance very quickly. So Overeem took a strategic approach. He focused on the body. He took the fight out of his opponent by taking the midsection away. You know, kill the body and the head will fall is the quote that we've heard hundreds of times. It works just as well for mixed martial arts. Look at that beautiful knee to the midsection there that buckles Brock Lesnar, and then it was the shin across the ribs that really finished the fight off. You can see the reaction in Lesnar. He goes down and Overeem jumps on him for the finish. You know, it's a strategic approach to many different types of fighters, different body types and different skill sets. So if he's fighting Arlovski, who has a lot of forward momentum, he likes that sprint forward, you've got to start thinking about things that will slow them down and take that attack away. And the low kicks and the knees are going to be two of those things. Okay, well, let's take a look at Arlovski now then. He's been around a long time, as we have underlined, but there are some common themes to the way he goes about his striking. There are. He has evolved over the years, he has improved in certain areas, but he's actually just gotten a lot better at the things that he was already good at. He's a good boxer, he's got a nice traditional boxing stance, he's very quick with his right hand, very fast off the mark, and he's good at placing that right hand in the right situation to land a good clean punch. On Cabbage, this was UFC 47, I believe. Beautifully placement of the right hand, good overhand rights, good uppercuts, but it was the lead uppercut that got the job done. But this was one of the best right hands Arlovski's ever thrown in his career. You don't actually see it in the full speed one, but the replay, look at that, right on the chin. He level changes to take him down, but Buentelo's already unconscious before he's even realised that the takedown's not necessary. This is what I want to talk about, though, specifically on this breakdown. The fight against Bigfoot. He uses a double right hand here, which he used early on in his career as well, but not to the effect that he used it in the Bigfoot fight. And you'll see him stepping forward. He uses the first right hand to gauge the reaction of Bigfoot. So in this situation, he's actually squaring his shoulders up, which allows him to, when he throws that double right hand that gets the fight finished, you'll see the placement of the second right hand is perfectly timed and placed for where his head is going to be. So he's going to throw the first punch, he gets the reaction which squares Bigfoot's shoulders up, so then the second loop and one can come right over. Let's watch the replay again and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The first punch is really just a setup for the second punch. Here it comes, here comes the first one. It's going to turn his chin and it's going to square him up and he's going to start moving backwards. Now, this is not his only option. If he gets a different reaction from that first right hand, he can switch up his attack, which I'll talk about in a second. But for the Bigfoot fight, he knew that if he pushed forward that first right hand, Bigfoot was going to square his shoulders and start moving back in a straight line, which means that that second right hand was the perfect punch to land, the perfect opportunity to use it, and he landed it with good power and good timing to get the fight finished.
So we think that Arlovski is going to come really aggressive, as he always does. But what does Overeem need to do to neutralise that?
Well, he's very good at working as a counter striker. He's very good at hanging back, maintaining that distance and picking people off as they move in. A good example is the JDS fight, and watch this left hand that he lands here. A beautiful strike, but one that we don't see very often. As we watch it in slow motion, you'll see the placement of his hand is actually a ridge hand. He's actually got his knuckles turned out.
Like his fellow countryman
There you go,
Bashford.
Yeah,
You'll be very proud of him.
We don't see this very often, but it did damage the nose of JDS and it did affect his approach to the rest of the fight. But Overeem wasn't happy with that. He realised that he'd missed an opportunity to land the knockout, so he adapted it for the next punch. And he actually slips inside the jab this time. Instead of slipping outside with the left hook, he slips inside to load the left hook so he can power it through and lands a beautifully clean shot. A very nice finish over former UFC champion, which really raised his stock. Another former UFC champion, Frank Mir, as Overeem steps in with the overhand right in this situation, he actually finds himself in a tie clinch. He doesn't allow Frank Mir to finish that guillotine, and he pulls it back to the tie clinch and lands a good knee that rocks Frank Mir, sends him to the canvas, and then as you can see, he starts piling on the pressure. But it's a very conscious approach. He's not rushing, he's not losing his temper, he's not losing his composure. And he starts looking for things like this. This is very smart. Removing the defense before you start the attack. Pin an arm down. Now Frank Mir's pinned across his body diagonally here. He's got his left arm pinned and he's also got his right leg pinned in half guard. So when these shots start to be landed, there's not a great deal of defense on Frank Mir's part for it.
A lot of weight on that post.
A lot of weight. It's a big man. And another thing that we need to talk about as well is his ability to cover distance very quickly. Now, I'm not saying he's got the same kind of speed and footwork that Arlovski's got, but that 0 to 60 speed, I mean, watch this takedown against Struve here, shoots straight in, tackles him, throws him to the floor. His ability to sprint off the mark and land one good shot or one good takedown is definitely there. And again, the wrist control comes into play in his attack. He's controlling one wrist so he can land good, clean punches. And again, not losing his composure, he's picking those shots, he's placing those techniques. You can see him, he knows where he's striking, he knows what he needs to do to get the fight finished. That's a very smart striker that has adapted his game to suit mixed martial arts.
He's almost like he's taken his personality outside of the octagon and brought it into his fight game as well.
Most definitely.
We're going to take a look now at the Arlovski versus Brown fight, not just because it's a hell of a lot of fun, but you've picked out a couple of key things in that fight as well.
Yes, but it is a lot of fun.
But it is a lot of fun.
It was a great fight to watch. And interestingly, these two guys had trained together in the past. They were familiar with each other. You know, this is obviously going to put Arlovski in a good situation coming into a fight with another teammate, knowing he's already done that before. Arlovski knows he's got power in his hands. When he lands that one shot, you will see this flurry from him, this almost chaotic Vitor Belfort-esque running at his opponent, trying to get the fight finished. But this is something that he used in this fight, which I've not seen him do a great deal, and it's the back fist. Whenever he missed his right hand, he always came straight back with the back fist.
I love it.
It's really nice, and again, just there, he rocks Travis Brown with it. It was almost like it was catching Travis Brown just because he didn't expect it. It's not the kind of thing that most training partners would throw. It's not the kind of thing that we see in the UFC very often. And you know, even back and forth, I mean, you can see the determination on Andrei Arlovski's face to get this fight finished. Almost a little reckless, and this is where he's got to watch out against Overeem, because if he does get caught, that could be the end of the fight with Overeem. It could just be one punch. But look at the recovery, straight back up to his feet, goes straight back onto his attack, straight back to trying to get this fight finished, and it was only a matter of time before he got that fight finished. But the back fist is key in this fight. Coupled with the double right hand that he landed against Bigfoot, you've got to think, if he throws that one right hand and his opponent doesn't move backwards, what are his options there? The likelihood is his opponent's going to circle off to the side, so then he's got the back fist to chain onto the end of it.
Right.
So they're nice techniques, they work well together. We're going to talk about them on the mat as well. I want to discuss them in a bit more depth, but that's going to be a useful one when he's covering that distance, to not get too caught up in the tie clinch, to keep that distance by being able to step away and use that back fist. It may catch him unawares and at least set up the finishing technique for him.